Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. I want to give you guys a quick reminder that I'm giving away a $20 Amazon gift card. If you're interested in a chance to win, all you have to do is leave as many comments as you'd like on any video I upload this week on both this channel and my second channel, Storytime. At the end of the week, I'll draw a random comment from either channel. So I look forward to seeing your guys' comments, as it's literally always a joy to see everyone enjoying themselves, and best of luck. Our first story of the day is by Formal Negotiation 2. By all means, please tell my wife about us. In a previous life, before my world came apart about 5 months ago, I was the solo pastor of a medium-sized church in a large-ish southern city. One unhappy side effect of being a solo pastor is that when your phone rings, you answer it even if you don't recognize the number, since you have no idea how important the call may be. It could be a church member's grandkid whom you've never met, calling to tell you Miss Bessie's been diagnosed with some horrible disease. Or it could be a church member who just wants to talk your ear off for 2 hours. So earlier this evening, my phone rings, and since old habits die hard, I answered it. Hello? A lady says, "Hey, what are you up to?" I want to be clear before I proceed that I don't recognize this lady's voice, but I just assumed she was a former church member's kid or grandkid, something, so I was cordial. I say, "Not much, honestly. I actually just walked through the door with some food. How about you?" She says, "I'm hanging out with girl whose name I don't know." I say, "Great. I'm sorry to have to ask this, but with whom am I speaking? I don't recognize your voice and I have no idea who other girl is." Ladies and gentlemen, apparently that was the wrong thing to say. She goes, "Darren, you know who this is. This is Jessie." I say, "Well, Miss Jessie, I hate to break this to you, but my name isn't Darren, and I don't know any woman named Jessie. I believe you've called the wrong number." She says, "No, I didn't. This isn't funny, Darren. What happened? Did you leave your ringer on again and you're worried your wife's going to hear us talking?" I say, "Ma'am, I'm very sorry, but now I know you've got the wrong number." She says, "I want to come over there and tell her all about us and how you've been screwing me behind her back for 2 years. I'm sick of this stuff." Cue malicious compliance. And you know what? That would be great. By all means, come to my house and wake my wife up and tell her all about our torrid sexual affair. She says, "I'm leaving now." Engine cranks in the background. I say, "Okay, see ya soon." 5 months ago, I discovered that my wife of 10 years started cheating on me 18 months into our marriage. She racked up a grand total of 16 affairs in a decade. Somewhere in my immediate area, a man's wife was just awakened by her husband's side piece banging on the front door. She deserves to know what kind of man she married. I'm just sorry I can't be a fly on the wall for the very special episode of the Jerry Springer Show that just started in her driveway. Be honest, if there was any situation where you could listen into that conversation and how it went, would you? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Zombies. "You want me to tuck my shirt in?" "Sure, boss." Years ago, I worked at a certain big box pet store with employees in blue shirts and poorly maintained fish tanks. Back then, employees were required to tuck their uniform shirts into their khakis, with an exemption for pregnant female employees, which I was at the time of this occurrence. I worked the registers with my untucked shirt with no issues for months while I was prego. When I was about 8 months pregnant and just a few weeks shy of going on maternity leave, we got a new manager that was painfully clueless and stupid. Isn't that always the way? So one day, this manager calls myself and the other main cashier, who was also just as prego as I was, into the office, with another manager as a witness, to tell us that we're fine cashiers, but our uniforms are lacking. The other cashier and myself are just, "What?" Because we both had our khakis, uniform shirts, and black sneakers. Everything was neat and clean, so we both had no clue what he was talking about. I ask him what he's referring to. He replies that our shirts have to be tucked in. The other cashier and I have both been with the company for a while, and we are both super familiar with the uniform policy. So she and I both object and let him know that pregnant employees are exempt from the tucking policy. He waves his hand at us and says we are incorrect and that all employees must tuck their shirts. The other manager that's there acting as a witness chimes in that we're correct, but Clueless Manager cuts Witness Manager off and says he knows what the policy is and that previous management was just being lax. They weren't. Pregnant employees were actually exempt. The other cashier and I shrug and leave the office to go tuck our shirts in. Clueless Manager left for the day right after talking to us. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. We tucked our shirts in for sure, but if you aren't familiar with pregnant fashion, you essentially have two options for pants. Option 1 is using a belly band on your existing pants, or using pants with a belly band attached already. A belly band is essentially a very wide elastic strap that goes around the baby bump to hold your pants up, which essentially puts the top edge of your pants at your ribs. Option 2 is to do the hairband trick, which is to take an elastic hair tie and loop it through the buttonhole of your pants and around the button of the pants. This gives you a few extra inches of waist room in your pants to accommodate the baby bump, and also exposing your underwear/lower abdomen since you cannot zip your fly. Both options look absolutely ridiculous and are meant to be concealed under a shirt, and they only get more ridiculous the more pregnant you are, which we were both heavily pregnant by this time. For those unfamiliar, by 8 months pregnant, you're basically Violet from Willy Wonka with an internal Oompa Loompa kicking you in the bladder every 20 minutes. So we both emerge, waddle gloriously from the back room, where we tucked in our shirts looking absurd. I had my shirt tucked into my belly band just below my boobs, and the other cashier had hers tucked into her hairband closed pants, below her belly and with her leopard print underwear exposed. Clueless Manager was already gone for the day, so he was not present to see our magnificent uniform compliance. He wasn't in for another 2 days, so he didn't see our dutiful compliance, but all of our customers and coworkers sure did. Our regulars asked why we had our shirts tucked like that, and of course we obliged them and explained that Clueless Manager insisted we tuck our shirts in to comply with the uniform policy. For 2 full days, and part of that first shift after Clueless Manager left for the day, customer complaints to corporate about our treatment rolled in, and coworkers called the employee hotline to report Clueless Manager. District Manager is pissed about the whole thing, which we found out on day 3. On day 3, return of Clueless Manager, he enters the store, sees the other cashier and myself with our beautifully ridiculous uniforms, and asks why we're dressed like that. Shrug. You told us to tuck our shirts in. He gets red in the face and beelines to the office. He calls us into the office immediately and starts going off on us for not taking the uniform policy seriously. Mid-tirade, the district manager arrives furious. She turned to us prego-egos and nicely told us to untuck our shirts and head back out to the floor, before turning to Clueless Manager and going ballistic on him for enforcing something that we pregos were exempt from. Turns out Clueless Manager ruined District Manager's days off because of all the complaints that came in about the 2 pregnant employees forced by a male manager to show their underwear/pregnancy attire in public due to an absurd uniform policy. The complaints weren't just about the manager, they were about the company uniform policy as well. The customers didn't know the real policy, and the employee hotline complaints as well. All of these had to be handled by the district manager ASAP because the sheer number of complaints in such a short time meant that the regional manager was breathing down the district manager's neck to resolve the issue. District manager forced an apology to us out of Clueless Manager and treated us to lunch. We also got our stools to sit on at the register's back. Clueless Manager took them away because if you can lean, you can clean. Clueless Manager was sent back to HR training and fired shortly after for another similar violation. I was on maternity leave, so I didn't get to wish him farewell. Honestly, I'm overly disappointed that the company here took Clueless Manager and just sent them back through HR training as if they could scrub off all the crap that he had layered on him. He had 2 heavily pregnant employees that were still willing to even come in, and not only did he treat them badly, he outright disrespected them. The shirt-tucking rule's one thing, but taking the stools away from a pregnant woman? To me, this guy sounds like a monster. He should have just been fired. And our final story of the day is by Profile Electronic. Manager tries to make life difficult for me, doesn't know as per my contract, it benefits me. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working on a part-time basis in a small firm owned by friends. Pay was not very good, but the atmosphere was, and I was allowed to set my own timings, so life was good overall. Then a friend whom I knew only through social media approached me for a job in her company. Even though they were offering good money, I turned down the offer, as I knew I could not get the benefits I was getting in my current job. Plus, the commute to the new office was very long. I would have to travel 2 hours one way and change 3 trains just to reach the office. A month later, the HR of the new firm approached me again. They offered me almost 4 times the money I was making, and I could set my own work hours. There was also extra pay for working overtime and on weekends. This was important. I joined the new company. My friend did not know the terms of the new agreement I had with HR. She used to act like I owed her big time for the opportunity I got. So one day, I corrected her. I told her that I had turned down the offer she had been a part of, and 1 month later, I had had my own negotiations, and I got much more favorable terms. So I was here because her company really needed me, and not because of her. I didn't share the details of my agreement with her, but we both realized that she was making significantly less than me. This totally changed her attitude towards me. Now she wanted me out, and I was determined to stick through for at least a year. So she decided that she would make it very difficult for me to work, so that I quit on my own. There are a lot of stories I have about how she tried every trick in the book to make me quit. I'm sharing some of them here. She was my manager and was in charge of allocating work. Malicious Compliance 1, she started piling on more work on me than any other member of the team. I was happy to comply. She did not know that as part of my contract, I would be paid 1.5 times the hourly rate for every hour I worked overtime, and 2 times the hourly rate if any work was allocated to me over weekends or holidays. Every time she tried to ruin my weekend by calling me to the office unnecessarily, I happily complied. This continued till the time I left the organization and told her how much extra money she had helped me make. Malicious Compliance 2, after the long commute to work, I used to be hungry. So I developed the habit of stopping at the food court to pick up a glass of fresh fruit juice and carry it with me to work. My manager thought that this way she could harass me without actually seeming to do so. So she sent a notice that bringing liquids to the office was a hazard. Ironically, she used to have coffee delivered to her desk 3 times a day. Well, I pointed out that rule applied to her as well, and if I couldn't have my juice, she couldn't have her coffee. She had to literally spend an extra unpaid hour at work every time she wanted her special coffee. Meanwhile, I was happy to leisurely sit in the food court, have my glass of fresh fruit juice with some snacks, and then begin my workday half an hour later than usual. If there was ever the epitome of the phrase, "Congratulations, you played yourself," these stories would be exactly it. It's almost like a cartoon villain where everything they do just kind of blows up in their face like a stick of TNT. All we need is at the end of every failed attempt a little wah wah, and the manager walking off all grumpy to devise the next brilliant plan. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.